Good deal. All right, we are live here. Sorry about the delay for all those who were just jumping on. Thankfully, or unthankfully, YouTube changed the whole setup behind the scenes in terms of how this is done on the live stream. But nonetheless, the show must go on here, and I'm going to see if I can get a link and share it out before we start going here. So hang tight, everyone who is jumping on. We're going to dive into a really good topic. I know a lot of those who've been following on Twitter and corresponding. Yeah, here we go. Okay. Have been really, really interested in this one. So apologize for the delay. Just going to share this out on Twitter. Okay. Everyone knows what's up. It created a new link. That's why. Yeah. Boom. Boom. Tweet. Now live with. Okay. Oh, all right. Well, as you may see here, I've got a new face on the screen. It's my friend and buddy, Trevor from... You've changed your name now. What
Yes.
is the most current name?
You're a funny guy. TeslaOwnersOnline.com.
Tesla Owners Online. This is an iteration of Model 3 Owners Club, right?
Yeah. We started as Model 3 Owners Club just over 3 years ago, and it's been growing like crazy. However, with the advent of Model Y and more cars coming along and stuff, I just felt a little shackled by the Model 3 moniker. So I decided to get out from underneath that umbrella. And so we're expanding. Now, we had a little bit of a name change that was short-lived. We had a little bit of confusion with the official Tesla Owners Clubs around the world. We got that sorted out. So all is good. So yes, the official name is Tesla Owners Online.
Good. And I think that'll be a lot easier to remember. I just need a little bit of habit and repetition.
Yeah, 3 years of Model 3 Owners Club will do that to you.
Exactly.
I even have trouble with
it. Okay, so Model 3 is definitely something that people are talking about, especially after this most recent publishing of numbers on production and delivery. However, this is not going to be what we'll be talking about today. We're going to transition to the numbers that came out yesterday regarding Model S and Model X. So I've seen I know you've talked about this on your channel. I did a video going into detail specifically about why I think that it's about time that Tesla refreshes Model S and X. So just to sort of set the tone here, do you, Trevor, remember how long ago it was that Model S and X first started production?
So Model S was the very first handoffs happened in June of 2012. But production took a long time to get up and running, especially when the Model 3 won Car of the Year award by Motor Trend in early 2013, and that set them back. Model X was also unveiled in February of 2012. This is way before the Model S actually came out, and of course they got a flood of orders on that. But that car, because of the combination of production not being ready on the S and of course Motor Trend happening, that car was shelved for almost, the better part of 3 years. So, these production delays with Tesla is nothing new this is not our first rodeo, of course. It has a long history. And of course, if you remember as far back as the Roadster of 2008, sorry about that.
There you go.
That they had settled on commodity 18650 cells, which were used commonly in laptops. Still are on some of the cheaper laptops. Most of the modern laptops now have, special form factors and stuff. So having said that, that's basically where they took that battery technology that they did for the Roadster and parlayed that into the other cars. And since then, of course, with the Model 3 being a completely new design from the ground up, they've settled on this new 2170 cell. So, I mean, it doesn't take much to read between the lines that eventually something has to give. They can't keep using the same technology forever.
Right, totally. I see. So I know I've seen a lot of chatter online about whether the 18650, or it's also called, I think, in the industry, the 1865, can, with a different battery chemistry, take some of the high charge rates that now Model 3 can. So I guess that's my first question for you, Trevor, is do you think that if they change the battery chemistry in the 18650 battery cells for the Model S and X, could they potentially come in line with what the Model with the 2170 cells can do currently in the Model 3?
Well, first of all, I'm not a battery engineer. I like to read about the technology and stuff, but I am not a battery engineer. You have to remember the 18650 and the 2170 are just physical form factors. That's all it is. The interiors can be changed. The chemistry can be changed. I mean, how they're actually built internally are the same. It's a jelly roll, really. Yes, the chemistry's changed on the 2170 because it's all about optimization, about costs, and so on and so forth. Having said that, at the pure cell level, they could certainly make the chemistry changes. Whether it can actually support the same C rate with the BMS that they have currently now and the cooling system is anybody's guess. We do know that, I think it was a couple years ago when the 100 kilowatt hour battery pack came out that Tesla had completely re-engineered the cooling mechanism inside those battery cells. They put dual coolant loops on it. And they largely said that that was... they were going to use that as a test bed for the upcoming Model 3 in many ways, because if you look at the layouts of the cells in the Model 3, it's 4 cells. It's not 16 like the S or the X. So it's a completely, the organization of how they use the cells and how it's organized is largely the same, but physically how it's laid out is differently. So I think it really shows in a lot of ways that, Model 3 is basically the next generation of where they want to go. So whether it can actually support it or not, I can't answer that definitively. But I would suspect that there are some significant engineering changes that have to go on in the battery pack. If they were to go to a 2170 cell, of course, it's a little taller and a little bigger. That whole pack has to change. They can't use it. Physically the same form factor, depending on how they reorganize stuff inside with the modules and stuff. I don't know. From an engineering aspect, I think that they could probably make some changes internally in the battery pack, maintain the same exterior form factor so it actually fits in the car. Whether it actually warrants a complete redesign of the car, I have no idea.
We saw a Tesla file a patent. In fact, it was the news. I don't know when it was filed or if it was even improved or approved. But February 1st, Electric commented on Tesla filing some new patents that allowed for faster charging, better longevity, and lower cost. This is not the same thing as the Maxwell technology that Tesla's proposing that they acquire. So, and I believe that this patent, you hit the news before Maxwell news hit. So, it makes me wonder if they've got some other plans for changing the chemistry. I would say the best case for keeping the 18650 is that it fits in the Model S and X. We know that it fits in the Model S and X, and so it would mean that they would not need to change the battery pack very much in terms of size of the pack. They'd have to probably refigure the cooling, right, and the ability to take that high charge rate that Model 3 can take, but again, I would agree with you. I'm not an engineer as well, but if it is possible to redesign the chemistry, keep the same battery size cells, to me, it could potentially make sense and be an easy transition just to change the battery cells out. Now, to look at it sort of conversely, as you sort of alluded to or mentioned earlier on, they've been producing this battery size for a while. Why should they continue to produce this battery size, the 18650, if they're producing, hundreds of thousands, 400 to 500,000 Model 3s with the 2170 cells? It would make more sense if they transition everything to the 2170s, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It does not personally. If I look at it, just from 20,000 feet looking down, it doesn't make sense to have two physical form factors. You really want to be in on this new 2170. We know that the new Power Packs have it. We're going to assume the Roadster has it. We know the semis have this. I mean, Tesla is all in on this new form factor. So I think in due time, I mean, I personally think in due time that the S and X will be revised in some way, shape, or form. Now, whether that actually coincides with a complete redesign of the car, I don't personally necessarily think that a complete redesign of the vehicle is actually warranted. There's nothing wrong with the S and the X the way they look now. Yeah, you can do a little facelift. They did a little knuck and tipping or whatever you call it back in 2016 when
Yeah.
they did the facelift. Of course, there were some rumors floating around, and I forgot where they read them. It might have been on Electric, where and I think they kind of surfaced at the same time where they had gotten that scoop about the interior redesign
Yes.
concepts
It
that
was
were
Electric.
floating around. Of course, so the other part of that was floating around is that there were some scuttlebutt going around that the Tesla was going to update the tail lights. Now, I read that as a necessity if they are going to eventually switch to a CCS type plug like they have on the Model 3 in Europe. You design a big charge port like that and it makes it easy. Obviously, we can't do CCS on the S and the X just because of the way the taillights are designed, because of the connector that we use. So if you put the pieces together, it kind of indicates that there is going to be some kind of refresh to the cars, whether it's large or small, we don't really know. But I think it's and whether it's actually imminent or not is still unknown. I mean, Tesla is one of these companies that you can read between the lines and kind of see how they do things. They are a bit of a creature of habit. And of course, with the deliveries that are happening right now that are significantly lower on the S and the X, whether that's production that's been reduced or less demand, I mean, there's several factors involved with this. They're all in on the Model 3 production right now. They've taken some people off some of the shifts for S and X. A federal tax credit in the US, of course, is being halved right now. So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that come into play with this. So, how much inventory do you want to have on hand, as a potential boat anchor? If they were to do a refresh, you don't want to be sitting on a bunch of inventory that, potentially you have to discount as well. So if you put all those things in line, one could make a case that some kind of refresh is imminent. I mean, again, that going back to that Electric article where they had the interior refresh concepts, the number that was floating around was possibly July of this year, third quarter. I believe it's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, because with Tesla, it's all about resources. All their resources they went through hell last year with the Model 3 trying to get that production up and running. So, and they're not Ford or GM. They don't have thousands and thousands and thousands of engineers just kind of twiddling their thumbs sitting around on a payroll. They have to allocate those resources. So Tesla's still a young company,
Yeah, I do wonder what that looks like in terms of timeline. One of the things that sort of re-energized this idea that a refresh for S and X is imminent is the delivery numbers.
Mm-hmm.
So the delivery numbers came out last night, and they delivered just a little over 50,000. Actually 50,900 Model 3s, and then they say 12,100 Model S and X.
That's half of what they normally do.
Exactly. Yeah. For context, that's a pretty big drop. That's a 50% drop around, because they've been delivering 25 to 30,000 Model S and X. One of the contributing factors is that they did away with that lowest end 75D for
Correct.
Model S and X. So, my mind goes down this road of, so if Tesla makes a decision to do away with the 75 at the end of January 2019, they now have only one in fact, after that, they introduced, they had the 100 kilowatt hour pack, and then they had a software downgraded pack,
Correct.
which I believe they started calling the standard range. And
now it's gone.
They did away with the standard range now.
Yeah.
So now it's only what they call the long range, which, as we understand it, is the 100 kilowatt hour pack.
Mm-hmm.
So why? This is the question that I'm going to let you sort of run with, Trevor. Why would a company whose flagship vehicles, Model S and X, with a proven track record of a healthy profit margin, of around 20 to 25%. Why would Tesla do away with that proven track record? What would be the reasoning other than an imminent refresh?
While one could make a case of potentially encroaching on Model 3 in the sense of that you don't want too much product overlap. I mean, Elon did say that they kind of deliberately had separated the cars in terms of pricing and features so that they could make sure that they didn't have too much of an overlap. But, you know, it's funny because when you look at Tesla in a lot of ways, of course, with the debacle that happened back in March, with all the pricing changes and stuff, that they seem to be operating largely in a lot of haphazard manner in a lot of ways, and it can be annoying at times. But you know what? At the end of the day, they are masters at pulling demand levers when it's necessary for them, and when that happens, it's almost like they thought about it. It's almost like they have a plan behind this whole thing. So when they do that, it's like all these other problems just kind of fall by the wayside. It's like, oh, okay, it actually makes sense. So I'm kind of waiting for the hammer to drop as far as something's going to happen eventually that will explain a lot of these changes. So, like I said, I can read the tea leaves as much as the next person, and I'm wrong. Trevor's been wrong before. But I am a firm believer that they cannot, and this is the way I look at it right now. The Model 3 charges like crazy. I mean, we've got 250 kilowatt support now on V3. That's not supported on the S and the X. Something has to give. You can't have these high profit, supposedly high-tech cars, Elon's mentioned it many times before, sitting by the wayside while Model 3 takes over the limelight in a lot of these ways. So something has to give eventually. Elon said it before. I mean, these are our flagship cars and they will get the latest technology. Well, we haven't seen any of that evidence yet. So where is it?
100%. And for those that don't follow Tesla as closely as we do, I want to state one thing about S and X getting the 2170 cells. One thing that we can rely on in that regard is the most recent earnings call for Q4 2018. That question got asked, and Elon responded with, "We have no plans to use 2170 cells in Model S and X." And the key thing that he says after this, though, which further fuels this speculation, is he said, "And we can't comment on future technology development." So the context is no, Tesla doesn't plan to add 2170 cells in S and X, but we also can't comment on what we're about to do, essentially. So they're working on something, or I don't think that Elon would have said that in conjunction with that statement in answering the question about 2170 cells in S and X. So if it's not 2170, but it is something else, maybe it's the 18650 with new battery chemistry and the ability to accept a higher charge rate with better cooling capability architecture in the battery pack, or could it be something completely different?
Well, we all know Elon's been around a long time. He understands the concept of Osborning your products, right? The old Osborne effect. Basically, don't pre-announce anything until you're actually ready to talk about something. When he says we don't have plans, the way I read it is that's a classic deflection. Basically, don't say no comment because you're almost admitting that you actually have something. So for him, I think it's easier to just deny it completely and then change his mind later on. I mean, he's been known to do that many, many times, and we're still waiting for the tow hitch on the Model 3, right? So I think that's a deflection mechanism. Yes, they are working on something. Of course they are. What it is exactly, we don't know. I mean, you can put a lot of numbers together. They hired Professor Jeff Don from Dalhousie University here in the East Coast. He's a battery expert, largely because he's been working very a long time on the electrolyte chemistry, on trying to reduce the SEI, or the silicon interface layer buildup that's happening on anodes and electrodes, which is a common thing that leads to battery degradation. The other thing that he's an expert at is building rigs that can actually test these cells in a short amount of time compared to, say, waiting 10 years, which other people may have to do. So Tesla's got him wrapped up in that. Of course, you got JB Straubel, who runs the whole battery division down there. Of course, now they're buying of Maxwell technologies and stuff because of their solid state capabilities. Solid state, by the way, is the next thing because it makes the electrolyte essentially non-flammable, which is, of course, these things that we don't want to see, of course, any more battery fires. So by going to a solid state electrolyte, you essentially eliminate that whole thing. There's a great documentary by David Pogue, and I forget where it's called. Anyways, you can look it up on YouTube, and they develop these solid state battery pouches, and they can actually cut them up. They don't catch fire. So that's really where they want to go. Combination of, reducing the cobalt, which is expensive in the battery cells. The other thing, too, is
contentious too.
Yes, of course it is. Absolutely, and you do not want that cobalt in there. So they're looking at ways of like that. I mean, Tesla has been adding silicon to the cathode technology and stuff. But the problem with silicon, and I was at a conference last year here in Ottawa where we had some battery technology experts, and they basically said, yeah, you can add silicon in there because it can actually absorb, or it can actually store more energy than traditional carbon, but it has a physical problem, is that it swells almost up to 300%. And it doesn't go back, and it can only be charged a few times, and after that it's dead. So there's a fine line as to how much silicon they can actually put in there. So yes, it gives you a boost, but you can't put too much in there because then it's detrimental. So anyways, this battery chemistry, it's a whole other thing. I don't pretend to know everything about it. I just remember some points that are in there. Anyways, getting back to our point.
Yeah. I want to add another thought in there. In I think it was the Model 3 $35,000 conference call for press. Elon said that he intends on delivering 70 to 100,000 Model S and X. Of course, on the lower end of that 70,000, they haven't done that since. I want to look it up because I actually did a chart on this.
Well, their run rate over the last couple of years has been 100,000.
That's exactly right.
Annualized.
Yep. I want to look here,
and that's what the production line is actually capable of. They haven't been able to ramp it any more than that because that's what they figure that what they can sell.
Yes. Yeah. So they haven't produced this little of Model S and X in quite a while. I wanted to see if I've got that pulled up. I found the spreadsheet here. Sorry, it's not.
Glad you have it. I don't.
No, that's fine. Let's see here. Model S and X delivery. Here we go. So back in 2016, they delivered 25,000. So I guess it's a little bit hard to calculate sort of on the fly here, but it's been a long time since they delivered this few number of Model S and X, and I mean they've consistently been doing 100,000 a year. So if we've got such a low sales numbers for S and X, 12,100, how long would Tesla wait, do you think, to sort of kick something in gear? I mean, is there anything else? Are there any other factors at play pushing down delivery numbers for S and X? I mean, this is definitely proven cars.
One could make an argument that demand could be a little softer. We know generally in the industry that auto sales are down. It's a little softer. You do have incentives and tax rebates, that type of thing, that are affecting. I mean, down in the U.S., you guys have half of your federal tax credit now. So that's affecting. I know here in Ontario, where I am, we had a very, very generous rebate on electric vehicles up until summer of last year. We had $14,000. And I know for a fact that once the new government was elected here and the rebate got unceremoniously yanked underneath that, sales of all EVs tanked. And Model S and X are not cheap up here. They are at least 30% more than they are in the US because of the exchange rate. So that hurts. Model 3, it suffered some sales as well. I mean, Tesla did us a solid last year when they dumped almost 4,000 cars on our roads in June alone, just in advance of the election. So thank you, Tesla, for doing that. That helped out a lot. They're still selling cars, but not in the numbers that they used to. So I know that demand here in Canada is certainly softer than it used to be. We can't count on rebates forever because, they are an incentive, and once the incentives have done their job, they kind of go away. But it's still too soon to get rid of incentives, as far as I'm concerned. I know that in Congress, there's another bill that's going around to try and get that the tax credit in the U.S. Lifted from the 200,000 cap to potentially 10,000 or 10 years, I think it is. So hopefully that that does something. But right now we do need the incentives to get things going. So, like I said, one could make a case that sales of those super high-end cars, in light of the fact that some of the rebates are gone or tax credits are gone, would result in softer sales, of course. But again, these are low numbers. This is 50%. Is it actually 50%? I don't really know.
But I would counter with the fact that S and X are, the people who are buying Model S and X typically are not as cost conscious as those that are buying the Model 3. So it's a different target audience, I would propose. In fact, I've got the numbers pulled up here. So the last time that Tesla sold around 16,000 was back in Q1 of 2016. So they produced 12,420 S and 2,400 X.
Yeah, very early days on the Model X.
Yeah, truly. And then the following quarter, Q2 2016, there was actually a huge drop where they produced 9,764 S and 4,638 X. So a relatively significant drop in the S during that time. But then the following quarter, it jumped back up and they were producing over 25,000 combined. And then
we even had really good numbers in the last quarter too. So
yeah,
what happened?
yeah, exactly. I mean, and so I guess that's, you're looking at all of that stuff. That's sort of why I think that I just cannot see Tesla waiting too long. And they had to have seen this coming, right? It shouldn't be a surprise to them that when they remove options for battery packs on the lower price end for S and X, surely it's not a surprise to them that it's going to impact sales. And for a company who is extremely cost conscious and working really hard towards profitability quarter over quarter, why would they do that then? And knowing that Q1, especially January, sales are a bit soft.
Yeah. Well, I think I hope that happens on their end. I mean, I hope this is not a fluke on their part. And I'm just going to kind of go back to what I said before, that Tesla always seems to come out of these things. They do something. Either they pull some kind of demand lever. I mean, they just reinstated the referral program, of course, which got out of control in the last one, but whatever. So they seem to be very good at at creating some kind of demand for their product. And, if they refresh the S and the X, at least at the interior part, that would generate some demand. But on the other end, you can't let the technology languish, because now we have V3 that's coming, is being deployed now on the Model 3. So then that starts making look at your, $100,000 cars look pretty bad.
Do you think that, would there be a software update possible with current S and X that would give those owners access to V3?
Well, we do know that there is a software update that is going to roll out that will uncap some of the limits for those cars on V2. But again, Tesla hasn't said whether they'll be able to do V3. They keep saying V3 is Model 3, Model Y, whatever else they come up with. S and X, they're going to get an approximate 25% speed bump, depending on the combination of the software update, which does the preheating of the battery pack before you reach your supercharger, as long as you use a navigation system, plus the upping of the existing systems to 143 kilowatts. So I'm looking forward to that, because, of course, I have a Model X, and a little faster supercharging is good for everybody, of course. So yeah, something has to give. I just hope it's some kind of refresh. In my opinion, like I said to you before, Sean, I don't think it's necessary to actually update the looks of the car necessarily. Yes. The Model S is, it's 7 years old now. It's aging quite well. It's still looking great. So fix the interior. That's always been the people's biggest gripe about the S and the X, although I don't have a problem with it. But yeah, fix the interior. We know for a fact that Tesla's future design intentions is basically mirroring with the Model 3. We saw it on the semi truck. There are some, hints about it on the Roadster, of course. So it's of course, with the electric thing that happened, we know that that's the direction they're going on the cars. So yeah, you can read the tea leaves there. But on the tech aspect of it, you got to do something to the pack. So we know Model 3 charges faster because, the cell chemistry is different, the organization is different, has thicker charging cables from the charge port to, the penthouse on top of the battery where all the inverters are and so on and so forth. So S and X are certainly not that thick. So how much they have to change to make that happen, I don't know, but there are changes that have to happen in order to support the 250 kilowatt. It's not just a matter of just a software update to unlock it. It's more than that.
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with that. Could they dual phase it, update the battery pack today, like this quarter, this month? I really am hoping that they do something this month to spur on the S and X sales. Could they update the battery pack this month, and then maybe Q3, Q4, then they update the interior or whatever they plan to do, exterior, interior, or whatever.
Yeah, anything's possible with Tesla. I mean, there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason. We know for a fact, of course, they've made no bones about this, that they don't wait for model years to do refreshes. They just do them whenever they're ready. Model S got a refresh on the nose cone back in April of 2016, just after the Model 3 was updated or was revealed. Since then, they've done lots of little minor changes and stuff. They got rid of the panoramic glass now, so they just have the all glass roof, and made changes to the seats. I mean, they've gone through no less than 5 seat designs over the last 6 or 7 years that the car's been in production. So yeah, anything is possible. Although I think from a resources aspect, I don't think it would be wise for them to do it in stages like that, because you're just going to upset a lot of customers. So I think it's probably best for them to just, okay, here's the update. We've updated the tech. Here's the new interior. And then all of a sudden sales are going to take off. I mean, it's a given. I mean, we know that there's a lot of people that have been talking on the internet. They're waiting. They're not buying any cars because they keep hearing about this refresh that's going to happen. It's just a matter of when.
And maybe it's our fault. Like maybe we're stoking the rumors here by talking about this.
Yeah, we're all kind of guilty of that sometimes too. Sure.
Well, I mean, Tesla's definitely making a lot of changes. They're making a lot of decisions here that point towards something that is coming. I'll fire off another question to you to get your opinion of this. Elon stated that he thinks that Tesla will deliver 70 to 100,000 Model S and X combined in 2019. If Tesla doesn't make a change to the battery pack, that seems to be the most important thing, because one, it means more range, likely, hopefully more range and better charging, higher rate of charging. Does Tesla meet that lower end goal of 70,000 cars sold if they make no update in 2019?
That's a really good question. Well, what's the low end of the scale again? 60,000?
70 to 100,000.
Is at the low, so that's 30% drop compared to what they normally do. Yeah, that would be.
So they did like what, 10 to 15,000 less this past quarter than they previously do. So we're talking, 10,000 a quarter. Let's say it remains low throughout the entire year. We're talking 40,000 cars, right? That would impact if it continued on this pace of around 15,000 Model S and X. So I mean that's lower than the 70,000 low end projection that they're expecting. And I don't know how in the world, if they kept things the same, how they would get to 100,000 cars sold for S and X.
I agree with you. I think we'll have some more color on that once the earnings call comes in for the first quarter. They'll probably do some kind of update letter, and they may revise that number. Again, that's an old, that's the last number we kind of heard from them. So maybe they have something. Maybe they're going to revise it. We really don't know. I think it'll become a little bit clearer then. If they keep the same number, like you're mentioning, then I would say that something's going to have to come, because if they continue the way they are right now, again, we have to make a point here that Tesla is still aiming to do, what did they say, 400,000 cars for 2019, a majority that's Model 3. They are not done ramping Model 3 production. They still want to ramp that up. So something has to give. So you take personnel off of the S and X line like they have done in the past for 3. Maybe they keep them there. Maybe they shut down another shift. I don't know all the metrics of how that works, but it's possible. But you have to give somebody an incentive to keep those numbers up. And right now, it just seems like nobody's buying the cars. Well,
Yeah.
that's extreme. That's extreme. People are buying the cars. It's just not in the same numbers they were before. So,
And I just don't see Tesla accepting a step backwards in terms of sales and in terms of revenue too. I
well,
mean,
revenue is a big one, of course, because Model 3 is not at the revenue numbers that they need to be. I mean, we still haven't seen the $35,000 car, despite all these changes that they've tried to make to try and get profitable. And of course, they backtracked on some of that stuff. So the S and X are still paying a lot of the bills because that's where the margins are. So, I mean, you can't cut that back and not have the margins and still, try and stay profitable for Q2. They said that they were not going to be profitable for Q1. And of course, they've kind of reiterated that again here in the last letter. If they say they're going to returnable to profitability in Q2, then something's probably going to give. And maybe you're right. I mean, maybe you are going to see finally, maybe they've stepped up their plans. Maybe the original plan was maybe for Q3. Maybe they're going to step up a little bit. But again, it's all a matter of resources and priorities at Tesla.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap up the conversation here. I want to do something that I used to do on an old podcast of mine by doing a few rapid fire questions. So I'm gonna throw a couple of questions to you to give those that are listening and watching a little bit of insight into Trevor, all centered around electric cars and so on. So you've got a Model X.
I do.
You've been kicking around the idea of a Model Y for your wife. Of all the cars that are available now and that are on the production timeline, which one is your favorite? Which one gets you most excited?
Right now, what's being built?
It could be built, or it could be something that is imminent in the next couple of years that they've showed off publicly.
Aside from the Roadster?
I mean, it could be the Roadster. Yeah, I mean, I have a feeling that's what you're going to say.
Yeah, the Roadster is basically made of unobtainium as far as I'm concerned. Yes, I'm fortunate to have a couple. I mean, I'll believe it when I see it. That's got me excited. As far as buying a car was concerned, the Model Y is very exciting to me because if I had a choice today, buying a Model 3 or Model Y, because I have a penchant for small crossovers or that type of vehicle, I would pick the Model Y. If anything was to happen to my current Model X, let's say I got in an accident or something, I would immediately buy another one. I love that car. I love it. I love it. Love it. Anything else down in the future? I don't know.
Are you transporting any kids or lots of gear for the Model X?
Well, I'm in the computer business, and I do transport boxes and stuff, and that would be a challenge in a Model 3. That was one of the main impetuses for me to get a Model X over a 3 at the time. Now, that would have been different had a Model Y been available at the same time. I would have bought a performance Model Y. But of course, that it isn't the case. And let's face it, the Model X is something I like technology, and as a technology person, that spins my propeller. When I first saw it, I said, I would want one of those. But at the time, it was like, well, what can I afford? Well, maybe the Model 3. But after a few years of saving, you look at your bank account and go, well, looks like I can get one I want now. So that's what I did. It doesn't change my enthusiasm for any of the other cars, and no less on the Model 3. I think the Model 3 is still an excellent car. And, if we needed a second vehicle, which we don't right now, we would already have one in our driveway. But now that the Model Y is coming and it suits our needs a little better for that, that's a possibility. Of course, the timeline works better for us. We have a car we don't drive. It's a secondary car. We don't drive it. So there's no need to have that expenditure to buy another car. So in a couple of years, if it becomes available and maybe this thing falls apart, we'll consider it. We'll see.
Do you have solar?
No, I do not. I live in a townhouse, and my house is not ideally situated for solar. And I was considering it for a short amount of time, but by the time I was almost ready to do something, all of our incentives went away, and I was just like, yeah, you know what? I got bigger fish to fry, so I figured I'd wait a little bit.
In some of my research, I noticed that Canada collectively, of course, this is probably differs by province, but Canada is producing a lot of hydroelectricity.
We do.
So I think that's fantastic, and certainly gives you a clean conscience by charging from the grid.
Well, I have a lot of conversations with people online when I say something about pollution or this or that and the other thing, and most people don't realize in Ontario that we don't have any coal-fired power plants anymore. They were all shut down. We used to have some really bad smog days in Toronto. Almost as bad as LA and stuff. And when we shut down all the coal plants, that all went away. We haven't had any more problems with that, despite even the temperatures increasing over the last few years. So Ontario's power plant is very clean. We have a lot of hydro. Of course, we buy a lot from Quebec, and that's all hydro. We have nuclear, we have renewables and that stuff, natural gas, but we don't use coal-fired plants. So, it's not like West Virginia or whatever it is, where it's pretty dirty. We have a very clean grid here. Matter of fact, we have an excess of power. We sell a lot of it to New York.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Canada.
Well, you're in Colorado, different, so but whatever.
Yeah, right. Now we've got tons of sunshine here, so it makes a lot of sense. And I know a lot of Tesla owners here in the community end up putting solar on their house because it's just so abundant. The sunshine is so abundant. Okay, so maybe one or two more questions for you, rapid fire here.
Sure.
If you were to have 10 or 15 minutes with Elon Musk, what's one of the first questions that comes to mind that you would ask him, aside from, hey, are you refreshing the Model S and X this quarter?
I would bend his ear on battery technology. Like I said, I'm not a battery engineer, but the topic interests me. So I would actually pick his brain about that. Like, what are your thoughts on this? And how are things going with that? I wouldn't be looking for any trade secrets or anything. I just want to know where his mind is and stuff. That would be of interest to me. I'd probably ask him some stuff about SpaceX and stuff because, I'm a child of the 70s and I watched the Apollo program and stuff. So that's of interest to me. And I still follow SpaceX very closely because it's like NASA of the 60s all over again. It's pretty interesting. So I think that's where I would spend most of my time asking him about that.
Great. Okay, last question here for you, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up and give you a chance to shout out your channel. You wake up in 10 years, you fall asleep, wake up in 10 years. What does Tesla look like in 10 years? Assuming that they're still around.
What does Tesla look like in 10 years? I think if Tesla can survive these next couple of years, get to sustain profitability and stuff, because their products are so compelling, I see quite a few more products on the lines. Of course, I would expect them to have even cheaper car than a Model 3, like really get into the compact sedan market. Do some other products. I mean, we know there's a pickup truck, but there's certainly other opportunities into different spaces. One of the conversations I have with my wife all the time is because, we're thinking about retirement more and more. The possibility of some kind of electric RV would be of interest to us, some kind of motorhome or something like that. So whether that's a pickup truck type of platform, much like what Rivian is doing, of course, because you're very familiar with them, or something like the Semi, that appeals to us. So something along those lines. I sure hope that Tesla finally gets their collective what together as far as the solar stuff is concerned, because it seems to be languishing, and that's really bad because the factory's just across the river from us in Buffalo. So I hope they get that sorted out. It seems to be like the stepchild and stuff. So I'm sad to see that being kind of neglected. It seems to be neglected. So I hope they get that sorted out. But I have high hopes. The thing with Tesla is that they continue the way that they're going right now and keep making compelling products. Things have a way of kind of sorting themselves out. And I really hope, and I don't mean any disrespect to anybody at Tesla, because I know they work really hard, but they really got to get their communication sorted out, because it's pretty bad.
I agree. Have you ever a chance read the open letter that I did to Elon and the board?
I saw it, and unfortunately I have not read it yet, but thank you for jogging my memory. I will do that.
It's along the same vein. The communication from the company, as well as communication going out from Elon Musk. I really do think that it's time that they sort of step up their game with just a more mature communication.
Absolutely.
Not a back and forth, not a oops, we didn't mean to change that pricing, or I'm sorry we pissed you off because you just bought this $150,000 car and now you're selling it for $110,000.
Part of my problem though too is, and you're like me as a YouTuber and a very popular person on Twitter and stuff, is that we seem to be more of the communications arm for Tesla. We're the ones always correcting people's misconceptions and stuff. I don't think Tesla's doing enough education or enough public outreach. So, the impetus falls on us. And after a while, I'll be honest, it gets a little tiring.
Yeah, I definitely think
I'm happy to do it. It's just like, really, this question again?
Well, I would say, if I were to speak candidly between friends with, a couple, 100 people watching this, it's frustrating to be the what's a politically correct way to put it. I find myself often, and I'm not complaining about this because I really do enjoy helping people out, but I find myself often covering up for Tesla's mistakes. Often, it could be a wide range of things. It could be on the service side. It could be on the communication side.
I agree. Yeah,
I've got an email in my inbox right now of someone who bought a vehicle. They need a refund. That's the short version of it, without going into too many of the details.
Sure.
Not that anyone would know this person, but they need a refund, and it's been like 6 months since the refund was due to them.
Yeah.
And so,
I know exactly where you're coming from. We've had to have several behind the scenes escalations with Tesla on behalf of a lot of the forum members that we have. We have a communications channel to Tesla to help with extreme circumstances. And they seem to be pretty good, but they're busy. I mean, it's almost like they have a skeleton crew down there, and they just don't have enough people. So it kind of like, you can fix this thing if you put more people on it and you coach them properly and develop some kind of corporate policy as far as how you talk to people. I think a lot of that can be mitigated. So yeah, a lot of it falls on us, and I don't mind doing it, but it shouldn't necessarily be like that all the time. So
ultimately, it would be great if there were appropriate channels for customers to reach out to Tesla. And I know that there's a phone number that people can reach out to. I know that there's forums. I know that there's a support page with help topics. But to my knowledge, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, there's no email. Like, if you wanted to email support,
it's extremely difficult.
Create a ticket number. I think it's, sometimes someone who works at Tesla who can help you out.
Yeah.
But
that's what I have to lean on.
Exactly. Yeah, myself as well.
Yeah.
I do hope that Tesla improves that. I guess ultimately, if I were to have a magic wand, here in Q2 2019, what would I like for them to change? I would like to see a little bit more maturity with corporate communication. I'd also like to see Elon just quiet it down a bit, refrain from the insults and taunting that he's been really well known for over the last 8 to 10 months. And I would love for them just to so intensely focus on delivering the highest quality cars, because once people get the cars, they absolutely love them. And that's what's most promising about Tesla is when you get one, you become a fan of it, and you love driving it.
Absolutely. We see it. I see it all the time on the forum. People are ecstatic about taking delivery. Yes, a lot of them have gone through a lot of pain in, whatever, in the waiting process or even the delivery process, but ultimately everybody's in love with the cars. And like I said, it's a compelling product. So if you can just get over the little humps at this point and fix those things, Tesla's going to be in really good shape because they got really great products. They just need to fix, a couple little things, and then, they'll be off and running.
Yeah.
They're still a young company after all, and they still operate very much like a startup. But, at the size that they are now, in a lot of ways, if you look at the numbers that they're doing and stuff, they have to fix a few things. So.
One of my other suggestions in this email, in this open letter that I wrote, is to have a chief operating officer.
I agree with you. I was just about to say something when you were talking. Of course, I don't want to interrupt or anything, but
no, go ahead.
I do believe that Tesla really does need a Gwynne Shotwell.
That's exactly what I recommended in my letter.
Okay, well, there you go.
Along the same lines.
They definitely knew. Elon is really best as an engineer or guy working in the back. Tesla does need a figurehead, much like Apple needed a figurehead with Steve Jobs when he came back. And there's going to be a time when Tesla doesn't necessarily need a figurehead. They need him now. But in a lot of ways, I agree with you. He's a guy that's better off being in the back, doing the engineering, working out problems and stuff. And they really need a Gwynne Shotwell to really run things. Now, if I was to pick someone, it would be either Jerome or, and the name escapes me.
Someone at Tesla?
Yes. Yeah. Jerome would be obviously the guy to actually do things. They need a George Blankenship again, somebody like along those lines. to do proper communications. I mean, Elon's presentation style does take some getting used to. It's fun. He's off the cuff. There's something endearing about that.
Yes.
But he's no Steve Jobs when it comes to presentations and stuff. So they have their own style. I'm not saying that they need to change their style or anything like that, but I'm with you 100% that they really should have somebody really running, chief operating officer, and let Elon be the guy in the back. I
think you would see a little bit more consistency
absolutely.
with communication, far less going back and forth and changing things, and avoiding a lot of the frustration that people see and experience as owners and customers.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so where can people find you? And you've got a fantastic forum as well for owners too. So I'd love for you to shout that out.
Well, thank you very much. Yes, the forum is teslaownersonline.com. We have over 32,000 active members on that forum. It's growing like crazy. We cover all of the cars. Obviously, it started out as Model 3. So, I mean, if you want to talk Model 3, that's absolutely the best place. We have a very friendly forum, by the way. So there's not, there's no mudslinging or anything like that. It's a great place. We're all there to help each other. So obviously I'm active on there. Very active on Twitter. The handle's Model 3 Owners, or you can just search for Tesla Owners Online, of course. We have a Facebook thing, but I can't stand Facebook. I don't spend much time on that anyways. But those are the two best places. It's either the forum there. And of course, we do have a YouTube channel. You can just search for Tesla Owners Online on there, and I do periodic videos, education. We have a great series, by the way, and unfortunately, these videos don't get that much traction. I don't know why, but I generated a really great set of Model 3 tutorials. I'll give you the link. Maybe you can send it out or whatever. But if you're new to the Model 3 or you want to learn about the car before you take delivery, watch ours because they're better than Teslas.
That's awesome.
That's my plug.
Cool. Well, thank you for coming on, and please thank your wife as well for allowing you to chat with me for 45 minutes to an hour. And great to get to know you a little bit more and chat with you. I know we've had conversations on a couple of occasions, but super glad to be able to exchange ideas. And for those that are watching and listening, please go check out Trevor's platforms, because I do think you provide a lot of value to the community.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show. I'm always welcome to come on and talk to anybody out there. It was really nice to meet you at the Model Y event. I know we didn't spend a lot of time, but it was really nice to run into you and stuff. And I know you had an epic road trip to get there.
It was more than I probably wished I did, but the most important thing was that I made it to the event, and that was just a
great party.
The route that I had to take. So cool, Trevor. Well, thanks again. Really appreciate it. And I wish you lots of success in 2019. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, Sean. Talk to you later.
Yep. You betcha.
See ya.